Hi, beautiful people. I am Chris Jones and I am Managing Director of Meshed Learning, a learning system that helps you, helps anyone to facilitate 4 to 6 times faster learning than standard didactic classroom experience or lecture style learning alone. So, this is a pitch deck for our new company, a new organization called Mesh Learning in 2023. So the world has just experienced a global phenomenon in the COVID pandemic, and the effects of young people are still kind of unknown. So there are obviously sets of people that were in primary school that haven't just completed their GCSEs or their A levels or anything else, and the results show that they're poorer for it. There's been a poor provision for many years, and the full effects of the pandemic won't really be dealt with till some of those primary students have come to secondary education and they've come to their GCSEs and their A levels and so on. And we can see the skill loss that has happened because of those pandemic lessons. And the problem breaks down into 3 different stages. Widening gap. The results from the most recent round of GCSEs, Scottish Highers and A levels outside of London have dropped for the most disadvantaged, and the gap has widened. Quality of provision is partially responsible for this gap widening. So there is a slight drop. So the grades were slightly inflated last year, and now we're going back to a sort of a drop down from those inflated grades last year. It's going to be very challenging for businesses to properly equate did this person actually get an A or an A star compared to this other person that got an A star under maybe a slightly different system. And then you've got teacher-led grades. So you've got people at university, maybe all with A's, but maybe they didn't all get A's. So some parents are better at supporting learning than others. People that have been successful doesn't necessarily mean that they can confer to their children how to be successful too. There might be sometimes I've seen parents and they're very frustrated, just the general frustration of being up there and trying to communicate with someone down here is too much for them. There are other people that just don't understand success, and therefore, they may have a child that has a very high aptitude and could skyrocket, but they didn't because of the home learning provision that was provided by the schools, and the schools were wildly different in terms of. I've been a teacher for 15 years, and I know a lot of teachers, and a lot of my friends are teachers, so they're working at a great variety of schools. And what was done was quite significantly different in the various schools. Schools have limited budgets, and they're getting squeezed more and more under the cost of living crisis. And this squeeze over the pandemic period would have led to higher or lower quality provision. Just because someone is more expensive doesn't mean they're better. And just because they're cheaper doesn't mean they're worse. But if you pay for significantly cheaper compared to this provision, you're more likely to experience a poorer quality. That's generally the way that our system works. And around 22% of people outside of London can afford tuition, and this is 22 to 25%, whereas about 44 to 46% in London spend their income on tuition, which obviously makes a significant difference. If you've got your own time and your own energy, you might be embedding misconceptions, which then lead to you not getting the A star where you get the A rather than the A star because you made that slight embedding of incorrect information. Even going on YouTube, the number of YouTube videos that I've left comments on saying, this is an excellent video, your presence is amazing. However, you made this misconception, which now, if people are watching everything that you're doing, they've now taken that on board. You could have edited that out, or you could have changed that, or you could have done X, Y, Z, or you could have contextualized it and saying, why are you doing this when in reality it's wrong? So having someone to give you detailed feedback whatever level you're at, allows you to improve. And so tuition is a really, really powerful tool, and it needs to be part of the solutions. So the solutions need to be centered around the new curriculum. There's a new curriculum coming in both England and Wales being rolled out, but it needs to be deeply contextualized. Just having this very dry curriculum that just teaches the bare facts, and when you don't even attempt to make it relevant to the learner, don't attempt to make it more real world, don't attempt to do any kind of this is where you might see this thing, or this is where you might use it. That's deeply problematic. And Ofsted, when we've had inspections and where teachers have just taught a very good solid lesson, but they've not contextualized it, that actually has been graded lower. It's a really important tool, and it does speed up learning for sure. So there's a free tip for you. More tuition time needs to be available at a lower cost. If learners are to catch up outside of London, then there needs to be a significantly lower cost, because that is the barrier for many people. The wages are significantly lower for just in general. Obviously, there are certain jobs where I don't understand how people can even survive in London on those wages. But generally speaking, there is a higher wage expected and delivered inside of London, so people can afford slightly more expensive things like tuition. The solution needs to be more personalized as well. So not just contextualized, but personalized as well. So something relevant, and then giving them a journey that they can go on themselves, and having a really good coach who can enable removing gaps in knowledge that might be blocking students is incredibly important. Given less personalized education that they've been receiving during the pandemic has slowed their learning down, highly personalized learning can speed the learning back up. Why do we want this? Well, as a country, the sum total of our knowledge of any country, the ability for a country to think, means that the country, or the entity, you could say continent, you could say things like the EU, that's why I say entity, the sum total of its intelligence allows it to deal with problems more effectively and more rapidly, and come up with more solutions, which then enable the problem to be moved around and moved over and under and so on. If less people are thinking, and less people are able to be critical, and less people are able to come up with innovative solutions and create businesses that create solutions, well, the whole country is worse off as a result. So that's not what we want. We want more people empowered. And so I introduce meshed learning. So what is meshed learning? Well, meshed learning contains personal learning and thinking skills. So it contains teaching pedagogies that are well recognized in the teaching profession. So qualified teachers will already have a lot of these core skills. Not all, though. I've actually had to train. So I spent many years training teachers, PGC students, first year teachers, even experienced teachers, working with them on behavior management and assessment for learning and things like that. Some teachers returning from maternity and maybe coming back from a career break. They've gone away and they've come back, and they need to upskill in order to cope with a modern classroom. So just the assumption that you are a teacher, therefore you have all of these skills, is not the case. I've worked with many supply teachers who were teachers, and they've shifted the way that they work, and I've had to work on their teaching pedagogies too. But they're more likely to have those skills. Mesh learning uses coaching, which is not a common skill among all teachers. There are many teachers that are able to coach, and we are actively looking for those human beings. They are almost, not quite, they're about 80% of the skills required to deliver mesh learning effectively. The final 20% is then using technology along with your key teaching pedagogies, such as Bloom's taxonomy, with the tech platform that we have built. So using online learning methodologies and understanding how online and offline are different, understanding how individual and group are different, and the nuances behind those things are an encompassing set of things that make up meshed learning. If you look at the diagram on the right, you can see that there are several stages, but this is one block of meshed learning, and these blocks appear together and they sort of stack on top of each other, and you continue in this cycle. So there are three main stages to it. There is a lot more detail, obviously, when we start teaching meshed learning, but this is the general principle behind it. There's a knowledge transfer. We do a stage 2, we do stage 3, and then we finish the cycle. We start the next one, but they stack on top of each other in order to maintain the best retention as well. So it's not just about learning, it's about retaining that knowledge so that you're not wasting time. So again, so it's not just how quickly can you learn in the classroom, but it's how much can you retain so that you don't have to learn as much. So you could learn 3 lessons worth of content, but forget it all, and therefore it's irrelevant. But if you learn those 3 lessons worth or 6 lessons worth of content, and then you retain it, or you retain 70% after a month, well, now you're rolling. When you come to do a test, it's very, very easy for you to get a high score. So where did we come from? Where did meshed learning come from? Where did all of these pieces come together? Well, having taught for many years and taught enrichment, so that's trying to bring any student that might, so I was specifically a science teacher and later on a maths teacher, bringing students up that have those skills, but maybe there is a block. Maybe parents have taught them a whole range of things and they've reached the limit, right? And we go, okay, well, look, you've got a particular aptitude for this. Can we at least bring it out of you so that you can learn these skills at an accelerated rate, get your A's and A stars, and maybe open up that pathway to yourself? And then you've got the gifted and talented. How do you push the people that maybe even smarter? I've taught many people that are far smarter than I am. Just because you're less smart doesn't mean you can't facilitate extreme growth in a person, because intelligence and knowledge and understanding, well, I have many, many years of knowledge, of understanding, and of science. So I am ahead in that respect. And of course, that's how you can push things forward. And using our platform, you can do exactly the same thing. You don't have to necessarily understand fully the subject that you teach, but you can use the platform and your learning skills and your coaching skills in order to facilitate significant growth. Following on from research on different models of learning, personal learning, thinking skills, which led to me getting into my master's program, and I further developed personalized learning pathways using coaching and mentoring, and combined them together to create meshed learning in its sort of infancy. We then spawned numerous research projects, so working with Cats College, working with Tottenham Football Club, in order to teach, and in both institutions I received 100% pass rate, where there wasn't necessarily a 100% pass rate in years previous. This also worked with individuals as well, so taking students. There's one particular student consistently getting D grades. They'd managed to get onto their A levels, and they were getting Ds at every single test. And what I did is I looked at the way that they were learning. They were taking their notes, and I restructured the way that they took their notes. It made it a lot easier. They were spending half the session looking for a little piece of knowledge and trying to navigate all of these notes and all these scribblings and all these things. We streamlined that. And then we streamlined the retention process, and that person went from a D to an A star, and they're now studying medicine. Whereas if they'd have continued on as they were, that would never have. So following on from these numerous research projects, obviously post-pandemic, I've spent the last 2 years conducting pieces of research under the supervision of numerous professors, to check that my research ability, my general process of research was good enough, A, for a PhD program, but just B, to use in business as continuous research. Once I was confident that process and that my ability to do research was at a very, very high standard, I launched Meshed Learning, which is this year. So, in terms of timing, I just mentioned about the research and starting Meshed Learning, but the gap that had been mentioned in the news, for me, that's a problem, because I had not put my focus and attention on education. I've been doing general research skills in a variety of different things, looking at the environmental science. And now I come back to this and I hear after a year that still things haven't been sorted out. We've got inflated grades and still there is a widening gap. So for me, that's always been a problem. That's always been a problem. I'm not from an advantaged background myself. And so to hear that disadvantaged students are getting significantly lower outcomes, that's a problem for me. And it's a problem because ultimately, as a country, we succeed together. The more intelligent people we have, the more problems. So now is the time for me to start to train people up. There are lots and lots of amazing teachers that may be able to do exactly this. And that's who I'm looking for. That is exactly who I'm looking for. And that's who we will be working with and are currently working with. That's how I know. But we need more. And that's why we need you. So where are we right now? So obviously we've talked a little bit about the story, about our conceptualization of the process of mesh learning, the research projects that we've conducted, the business planning process that we have taken up until now. It's taken us 6 months to put all of those ideas into reality. And now you're seeing the fruits of those labors. And now we're not only are we launching, but we're also coming to investors and saying, well, look, there is an opportunity for you to get involved and help people out. And obviously, this is a business. This is not set up as a charity. So we will be making money. But in a philanthropic way, we will be supporting the people that cannot afford it by charging the people that can. And addressing the balance. I want to find the best people and empower the best people, whether they be rich or poor right now. And that's incredibly important. That's the mission of Mesh Learning, really, is to empower amazing potential and use the power of our system to move things faster and get them to a point where they can solve the problems that are going to come up. And there are going to be many and multiple problems. And so we will be generating sales very, very soon. But what we need is a budget, a survival budget, so to speak. I've used considerable reserves to get to this point without support. And now I need it. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to target 2 separate sets of markets. So our target market are individual tutors who want to start their own tutoring organizations. We want to empower those people, but also give them the tool sets to not just produce another tutoring company, but to produce a tutoring company where we're so confident that the outcomes are going to be great. The tutors have to be paid more for one set, right? They have to be. Why would you not? You experience that for 1 hour and you realize that you need to pay for that. That is the quality. And then our second target market are businesses that are interested in this arena. For example, supply teaching companies, we've got sports academies, and we've got tutoring agencies. Those 3 are the main points of interest for us to make sure that their education that they're providing is top notch, top drawer, whatever you want to say. Anyone that provides some level of training, coaching, teaching outside of support for young people, we want to support them with Mesh Learning. Now, that doesn't mean that Mesh Learning doesn't work with primary school students. It doesn't mean that Mesh Learning doesn't work with adults, because I've used it on many of our adult learning programs. And it works. It's a process of working with human beings, not just a process of working with secondary school students. But our niche, the thing that we're targeting, are anyone that works with secondary school students to start off with. You compete with everyone, your marketing budget gets blown, and you don't get anywhere. So talking about the budget and the size of things and how, what's the opportunity? Well, obviously, if you're an investor, you're wanting to know, well, how much money am I going to make? Yes, some investors do it because of the philanthropic nature of the project. Well, I don't want it to just be that. I want there to be a return for the generous nature and the empowerment that we get, you should be empowered by the work that we do too. The total available market, and these are in pounds, £123.4 billion represents the estimated total available market. Now, K through 12, so we are looking at like Canada and America and all sorts of other things. So K through 12 secondary education represents about 40% of the global share. So about 48 billion, which is the serviceable available market. And we aim for about 0.05%. You might think that doesn't sound very ambitious, of the TAM at present in the next 5 years, which represents £240 million. Now, we can only get there if we get support to accelerate ourselves beyond what you would expect and beyond what an ordinary tuition company might do. That's not our goal. Is not to make ourselves a tuition company, but to facilitate the market being filled with excellent tutors and companies that make amazing tutors. That's really what our goal is. So we have some direct competitors. So if we look at the models and the way that we're going to support people in growing, we've got companies like Justin Craig that provide group tuition, and they provide that throughout the year, and they come into schools as well. You've got Tutor Doctor, which is a tutoring franchise. I've worked for all of these. So Tutor Doctor, which is a tutoring franchise across the whole of the UK, very large. I've worked with them, and I understand the pros and the cons and the strengths and the weaknesses of each of these businesses. Prospero, a supply agency that also provides tuition, and any companies like Prospero. Prospero happens to be quite a significantly sized one, and again, I've worked with the CEOs of Tutor Doctor and Prospero in my journey to get here, and I understand their businesses. And I understand how their business model operates and financially and everything else. And then we've got indirect competitors. So these are the really interesting ones for me because they represent things that we're not currently doing, like the Internet of Things, augmented reality. Both of those things, I think, will have a really strong component part to play. However, they're a little niche at the moment. There isn't enough content to be able to deliver all of your learning via this. And to be fair, if you deliver all of your learning by one method, then it's probably no different. I say probably because I haven't done that research project yet. And using things like the Internet of Things, there is almost an unbelievable extent to the way that you could use these things. Once we provide this sustainable business model, we will be doing research projects that look at these things and integrate these things into teaching in a way that's knowable, in a way that we go, I know that this thing has had a significant effect. That's what we want to do. But these are not direct competitors at the moment. They do provide learning, and I'm constantly looking at these different technologies and things like that, and looking at ChatGPT and its use in education is one of our most recent research projects. They're not direct competitors because they're not doing the whole thing that we are. For example, robots aren't necessarily excellent for learning English. I have seen English learning robots, even as I say it, but a bespoke audio platform with a learning podcast might be. So that just sort of gives you a sort of understanding of the playing field. Because we've outsourced the core team, we have our platform has been built for a very, very low cost. Which means that we can outperform competitors by building lots and lots of platforms and sell them at a price which is both useful to the person buying it, but also does not seem too cheap that all the value that's in that platform is lost on them. And they're like, oh, well, it's too cheap. It can't be very good. We have a well-researched set of teaching pedagogies which have taken time to learn, and because of the nature of the business, we are a research and development organisation at our heart, and we continually and also build learning conferences as well. So for us, learning is incredibly important, and getting the very best in the world to talk to us about learning is also incredibly important. And anyone that wants to talk about learning, we want to get on our podcast. So we have and I'll come back to some of the real things that sets us apart in a second. And finally, obviously, our learning platform allows us. We can replicate it. We can sell it. We can chop it up however we wish to. So we can white label the system. We can also build courses which we can share across all of the different platforms, and we can make money in anywhere in the world. So those are really, really interesting things that as an investor you might be interested in knowing. So what about our competitor approach? Well, our competitor edge comes from the research that we've done and we continue to do, and we use a scientific approach to our business. So using scientific marketing, using our infinite sites approach to dealing with marketing. We use social platforms, influencers. We're going to be looking at participating in awards, TV interviews to talk about where we're at, flyering campaigns, and many more approaches too. We'll position ourselves as knowledge leaders by conducting podcasts and organising conferences. So we're already doing podcasts. We're about to launch our first set of podcasts that we've been doing in the build up to launching Mesh Learning. And we have run podcasts, well, I've personally run conferences in the past which have brought quite significant investors. Someone that helped start Spotify turned up randomly to one of our our conferences, and my team was like, that's this person. I'm not going to name drop, but they invested $500K in Spotify to get it started. So, in terms of investment, we're in a good, strong position, and we've also written, I've written a number of books, and people that will partner with us that we're bringing on board have also written research papers in education and things like that. So we will continue to do that process, and we will continue to build courses. So when you invest in us, you're investing in the long-term future, because courses are not going to go away. All the knowledge of the world is great, and it's at our fingertips, but also there are lots of scam artists and people that think that they know what they're talking about, and they genuinely have no idea. And that's why you need to have experts still supporting the learning process. So the nuts and bolts of this. Initially, we will present investors with a set of projects overseen by skilled program managers. The point of the program managers is to review and evaluate and verify the data in the projects. Every month, we'll find various projects that have financial, social, and environmental impacts in the world of education. Investors can specifically be directed to those companies and invest early, or if they feel that there is a philanthropic power that they can present, then they can also donate or invest in whatever way they see fit. Our process is to interview an organisation and present a report for each company that we investigate in the world of education. The funding that we receive will be used to investigate franchises, pieces of research, particularly replication research projects, and the use of AI. This rigour of our research will be verified by the doctoral studies that I'll be carrying out in the new year. Important to note, we currently have access to educational research through our Institute of Education Library Access. £10 a month will support us to produce an educational roundup of our literature review or actual research projects. Let's try again. For fuck's sake. Let's try it one last time. Yes. So initially, we'll present investors like yourselves with a set of projects overseen by skilled program managers. Those program managers are there to verify that the organisation is doing what it says it's doing. And every month we'll find various projects that have financial, social, and environmental impacts in the world of education. Or we'll update you on some organisations that we've been working with and alongside to showcase improvements in that organisation. Investors can specifically be directed to those companies and invest early. Our process is to interview an organisation and present a report on each company that we investigate in the world of education. The funding that we receive will be used to investigate educational franchises, pieces of research, including replication research projects, and the use of artificial intelligence, such as ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4, but also a whole range of others that may or may not have any positive impact on education. The rigour of our research will be verified by the doctoral studies that I'll be carrying out in the new year. Important to note, we currently have access to educational research through our internet, the Institute of Education Library Access. Important to note, we currently have access to educational research through our Institute of Education Library Access. So £10 a month will support us to produce an educational roundup of our literature review or actual research projects. We've got training licensees, and so these are people that are more competent at tuition. They will have gone through our program, and they will, the course to train up and acquire all of these skills and have the platforms 497. Initially, we do this under a buy now and pay later model. So they pay a deposit, go through the program, and then tuition companies or supply companies may take those people up, or they may start their own companies themselves, and they will then pay the rest of the course fees and complete that process. Now, that process is subject to change. Once we're trying to encourage a number of people in our expanded trial to pay, for one, and secondly, to get through the first cohort. As soon as that cohort is done, as soon as the moment that we have that data, which we could publish and that's really what I see our job as, is to take the work that we do and then start publishing papers. The price is going to go up. The course costs are going to go up. We're going to go to, in reality, it's about £1,400 to £2,000 worth of stuff that they're getting. Thirdly, we'll produce licenses that can train their own sub-licensees. So for example, UK might be a licensed region or a zone, and the zone will then produce sub-licensees. So we will have licensees around the world. So this is kind of like our expansion plan. It will function like a franchise. The zone will be responsible for training their own sub-licensees and finding people that want to create more mesh learning people. Ultimately, I would rather that we get to a point where there are no more mesh learning people needed, because then we can look at, okay, well, how do we build the courses now? How do we convert those courses into something, but under a mesh learning style, right? So there are the layers in which you would be investing in and helping support that journey. So any training license, that process for us as a company minimizes the customer acquisition costs, because we're obviously passing that on to the licensees, the sub-licensees, which will ultimately pick up the training licensees. Okay, so 3 different levels. Because of the current method, our current method is a zero cost route to acquiring customers. We've got about 250 odd people that are sort of sitting, waiting for us to launch properly. So we've paid zero for that using our marketing tools that we have used so far. We obviously want to increase the volume. 250 may sustain us if every single person were converted, but we're looking at like 10 to 20% conversion rates. If we can push that with and find some really amazing marketers, other than the ones that I'm going to talk about now, or just continue that continuous improvement cycle and get to about 30%, we'll be going quite well. But we obviously need to pay, and so maybe increasing the cost to about £10 per licensee might is something that we go from 0 to 10. We should increase significantly the number of people coming through to us. So the team that's delivering things, I mentioned some of the team already. So there's myself, more than 15 years experience, primary, secondary and tertiary education, project managed the platform and really got us to where we are right now. We've got David Jones, who's taught for more than 20 years in the Army and the private sector and the public sector as well, providing more than 40 years of coaching and mentoring experience. David's primary experience was teaching adults, but has worked as a project manager in the International Baccalaureate, which is a secondary institution, so has an understanding of the education system in and out of various different institutions. Trisha has been an excellent office manager and supported the HR process for several companies. Trisha's firm at Fairstyle has enabled us to have plain sailing and has more than earned her place in the team. So we've got Sumit, who is our senior developer, and he is an expert PHP developer and has been integral for the last 3 years developing the system which has led to the creation of this business. And he's worked with many other developers over the years and will be heading up the team as we expand and grow to make sure that our platform works perfectly well and has the latest features that you'd want to have on a platform. We've got Himanshu, an expert marketer who's been training for several months. He's got 6 years of digital marketing experience and is very, very good at design and understands the scientific process of the marketing process, which can lead to obviously research papers, and obviously we pass that knowledge on to our sub-licensees and our licensees as well. So he's part of the research team too, as is Tushar. So Tushar's got 7 years of digital content creation experience, and he works on our blog posts, but also collects research for me to write certain articles and create videos and so on. Particularly important recently, looking at ChatGPT research too. So here's our roadmap. We're seeking 50K for 10% of our business, or scale it down 10% for 2% of our business. We do this under SEIS, which means for you that if you sign up, and so let's take a model of £500. So you invest £500 in Mesh Learning and you get a 30% tax relief straight away. Now that's worth something. It doesn't take all the risk away, and it's not intended to. But if the business fails for any particular reason, then, which I don't believe it will. Okay, I have no reason to suggest that. We've spent many, many years preparing and planning for this day and this process, but you would then get 50% tax relief if the business failed. Okay, which is significantly more. It's only 30% if you're investing in an EIS business, which is more. And obviously we'll go through subsequent rounds, but this 50K will get us not only moving, it will mean that I am sustainably funded, that the team is sustainably funded, and that we have sufficient marketing budget to get our trial. So if you look at our journey, we've got the procurement, investment process, and training the licensees. It will mean that process is cheaper, and we can cover that first round of the expanded trial. We're going to start a tutor organisation with our licensees, and that will then form our trial for the rest of this year. So that 50K will allow us to survive. Obviously, we want to get to the end and make sure that everyone has got the value that they wanted, and then we can bank that money. And now we are even better off. And now we've got even more marketing budget, which we can then continue to grow and obviously look for more investors, doubling down. And so we're sort of like doing a double kind of cascade route to market. We're going to evaluate the new prototype organization's impact with the money and we're building some exciting things on offer as you know. So if you're interested in finding out a bit more, look at the business plan, look at the financial plan, and see if you want to invest. However, just a little bit of a caveat: you should always get independent financial advice. And the other thing to recognize is that I have been collecting investors' email addresses. I've been collecting investors' details for a number of years to get ready for this moment. So if it sounds really good and the team sounds good and everything that I'm saying sounds great, and you look at the business plan and you go, okay, well, this is written by someone competent. Yes, that is me. I am a competent human being, and I was a senior teacher in a school. I was not employed because I was incompetent. I was employed because I have a very, very strong CV. And so those investment stocks are going to disappear pretty quick. So seek your independent advice. Have a look through the business plan. Our accountant is very, very happy with the business plan and was happy to construct the SCIS roadmap for HMRC to see where we are going, and HMRC are happy with where we're at. So all of those things should lead together to, to give us the opportunity to get going this year and absolutely smash it. And then we go on a really, really cool journey together. So if that sounds great, have a look at download our investor pack, and then register your interest. So you don't even need to pay a single penny, but what we do need is your details. Now, obviously, if we fill up our pledges for 50K, even in the next 5 days, that application is done. We have our pledges and we're ready to go. We cannot receive any more than 50K for the business plan that we have put together. So that puts a bit of context to where we're at. We're in a very strong position. And if you're really, really interested, if it sounds good to you, then get involved. I'm looking forward to taking this journey with you. See you later.